Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an analysis of the Hindu newspaper from UPSC perspective. Today we will discuss the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 4th June 2020. And the articles that we are going to discuss today are displayed on your screen. So let us start our discussion. Now this article on page number 6 is related to the border skirmishes that are happening between India and China at the line of actual control between the India and China. And the author in this article highlights that the growing number of disputes on the India-China border by the Chinese troops indicate that there is a new age of territorial aggression by China against India. And the present kind of standoff is unprecedented in its scope and manner. And in this line, he further focuses on the reasons behind the present aggression and throws light on the limitations of China in such standoffs, and also highlights the strategy that India needs to pursue. So let us look at all these aspects in detail, and in this discussion we will look at why is the Chinese escalation happening at this time when the world is already facing the problem of COVID-19 pandemic. And after that we will look at the limitations which have been highlighted by the author regarding the China's moves on the border. So this can be a very important part for us from the General Studies paper 2 point of view under the topic International Relations. Now the issue of India-China border disputes has already been covered in the previous DNS videos, so do go through that and try and understand the historical background of the border dispute between India and China. And in this article, let us look at the key points highlighted by the author regarding the India-China border dispute and why is the China escalating the issue on the border presently. So in this article, the author has highlighted the reasons behind Chinese escalation at this time. Now we note that the world is already facing the crisis because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So in this background, the author has highlighted that China wants to distract the world from the COVID-19 crisis, for which it is being held responsible. Now we note that the United States of America has time and again accused the China of interfering in the functioning of the World Health Organization. And it has also been held responsible for delaying the information to the World Health Organization regarding the COVID-19 crisis. And we also note that the United States of America has stopped the funding to the World Health Organization and has quit the WHO. So as China is currently being accused of the COVID-19 crisis and delaying its response to the World Health Organization, it is trying to distract the world from this crisis by escalating the border issue between India and China. Second is that it is a reaction to India's political rhetoric on the Aksai Chin after the Jammu and Kashmir reorganization in August last year. Now we know that the government of India had recently abrogated the Article 370, and in that background the Jammu and Kashmir reorganization has taken place and the status of state from Jammu and Kashmir has been removed and now it has been made a union territory. And at that time the Home Minister of India had highlighted that Aksai Chin is a part of India and we will have it in near future. However, presently we note that Aksai Chin is under the Chinese occupation. And accordingly, because of this Indian political rhetoric, China has reacted in the way of border skirmishes in the Ladakh region. Further, in the past years, India did not carry out any major infrastructural development projects along the line of actual control or the LAC. However, of late, India has started developing these infrastructural projects along the line of actual control. And due to increased activity of India along the line of actual control, China has made this move of border skirmishes on the Ladakh region. Further, the author says that the recent move of China is because of its geopolitical view of this region. And we note that China's Belt Road Initiative in the form of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor passes through the POK or the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And India has continuously criticized this China-Pakistan Economic Corridor as passing through India's territory. And as China considers this region as strategically very important for its China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, it has made the move of border skirmishes along the line of actual control. Further, under the President Xi Jinping, China's foreign policy has moved away from the principle of peaceful rise towards asserting itself as the next superpower. Now we note that China had called for peaceful rise during the past 20 to 30 years when it started embracing the state capitalism. And it has now become one of the important economic powers across the world, and in this background it is asserting itself geopolitically. And this move of China is a part of its larger policy of being the next superpower. And further, China embracing the principle of being a superpower in its foreign policy is reflected because China is already engaging itself on multiple fronts like the handling of COVID-19 crisis at the home. Again, it has been involved in a crackdown in the Hong Kong, and this crackdown in Hong Kong has been called out by the other powers like the United States of America and the Europe. And further, it is being involved in the escalation on India-China border. So all these highlights that China is not bothered about any move, and now it considers itself as a superpower. And all these moves of China at this point highlights that it is embracing the principle of being a superpower in the global geopolitics. And accordingly, it is asserting itself on multiple fronts. Further, the author has analyzed as to why is China not involved in any major military expedition along its borders. And it is mainly involved in very limited scope military expeditions, especially when it comes to India. Now, in this background, the author says that it is because of the ever-growing conventional military superiority of the China which it enjoys above the India. And such small-scale military expeditions will not attract the wrath of India in terms of deploying its nuclear weapons. And when it comes to conventional military warfare, China enjoys a kind of superiority. So that is why it is getting involved in very limited scope military expeditions to give message to the world and India. Further, China thinks that India will overlook such small standoffs in order to avoid further escalation of the issue. However, the author asserts that the more India overlooks such skirmishes, the more China would be tempted to repeat them. And these considerations highlight the dilemma that India has towards the China in terms of its foreign policy. So in short, the author has highlighted that China wanted to distract the world from the COVID-19 crisis, and secondly, it was a reaction of China towards India's political rhetoric on the Aksai Chin. Further, it is also being seen as a response to India's increased infrastructural activity along the line of actual control. Again, this move of China is a part of its geopolitical strategy because its China-Pakistan economic corridor is passing through this important region of POK. And also the current president has asserted China as being a superpower. So these are few reasons which have been highlighted by the author as to why are the Chinese escalations happening at this time. So after this, let us look at in what way is China constrained in further stepping up these escalations. So regarding the limitations on China's adventurism, the author has highlighted that there are several places along the 1,000-kilometer long line of actual control. And at these places, the Chinese military is weak. However, the Indian army has an upper hand. And therefore, India can utilize its upper hand on the line of actual control and try and undertake a tit-for-tat military campaign along the line of actual control in order to give a message to China. Secondly, the author highlights that although China enjoys continental superiority over India, the maritime domain of China is very weak, and this is because China's commercial and energy interests are dependent upon the maritime space. And we note that India has a very important location in the Indian Ocean region, which is crucial for the Chinese trade and energy interests. So in this background, India can utilize its position in the maritime space for pushing Chinese strategy back. And again, the China's trade with India stands at about $100 billion. And if the Chinese escalation increases further, this trade between India and China will be further endangered, which is against the interests of China. So these are the three areas which needs to be exploited by the India for controlling the Chinese misadventures along the line of actual control. So while concluding, the author says that the time has come to checkmate China's military aggression along the border of India and China. Further, India should get more serious about finalizing a border agreement with China. And this is because the border conflict has been one of the important issues between India and China relations. Further, India should not accept these Chinese attempts at land grabs or military intimidation. And India should be more assertive and should utilize all these issues to its advantage. So as we note that India should utilize a tit-for-tat military strategy along areas where Indian army has the upper hand. Again, India should exploit its maritime location, and we note that China is dependent upon its commercial and energy interests on the maritime domain, and along which it does not enjoy such kind of superiority. And further, India and Chinese trade stands at about $100 billion, which is highly in favor of China. And in this background, India can try and balance this $100 billion trade between India and China to its advantage. So these are few suggestions which have been provided by the author, and also the author has highlighted clearly the reasons behind the Chinese escalation along the India-China border at this time. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now this article on page number 7 is related to the increased subsidy burden on the state governments regarding the free power to the farmers. And recently you should note that the central government has decided to increase the borrowing limits of the state governments to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Now in order to avail this enhanced borrowing limit, the state governments are required to implement a number of structural reforms. And one of the significant reforms which has been pushed by the central government is doing away with the free electricity to the farmers and replacing it with the direct benefit transfers for certain targeted beneficiaries only. Now this has been a proposed reform since more than 15 to 20 years to solve the ailing problem of Indian agriculture as well as the power sector. However, as we note that it is a politically sensitive move and the state governments have been reluctant to bite this bullet because it can lead to political disadvantages for the ruling parties. Now subsidies are known to be affecting the state government finances as well as the central government finances, and accordingly these are important part of the General Studies paper 3 under the topic economic development. So in this article, let us try and understand the kind of power subsidies that are provided and what are the adverse impacts of these power subsidies. So generally the power subsidies provided in the agriculture sector to the DISCOMs and also impact on other crucial sectors. So let us look at the impact of this power subsidy. Now the power sector has three segments. First is the power generation, transmission, and the third is distribution. Now most of the distribution network is still managed by the state distribution companies or the DISCOMs. And usually these DISCOMs do not enjoy operational flexibility with respect to setting the power tariffs in India. And the state governments usually interfere in the fixing of these power tariffs. And accordingly, the state governments dictate the tariffs in a way that caters to its vote banks. Now, for example, some of the state governments provide electricity at subsidized rates to all the farmers irrespective of their land holdings. And such universal subsidies are often distortionary and regressive in nature. And in this background, let us look at the adverse impact of the power subsidy on agriculture, on the state distribution companies which are responsible for the setting of power tariffs. And also let us look at the impact on the other crucial sectors. Now one of the biggest criticism of providing power subsidies in agriculture or the universal power subsidies in the agriculture is that such universal subsidies are regressive in nature. And this is because such kind of subsidies are availed mainly by the large farmers. And these benefits do not reach the intended farmers, which are the small and the marginal farmers. And these small and marginal farmers constitute about 86% of the total farmers. So this means that the power subsidy which is provided in the agricultural sector does not reach the intended beneficiaries. And these are mainly exploited by the large farmers. Further, such kind of power subsidies are adversely impacting the soil fertility. And because of the electricity subsidy in the agriculture sector, the farmers are over-irrigating their lands, and this is leading to decline in the soil fertility in the long run. And we note that such kind of moves discourages the farmers from adopting water conservation strategies or water conservation related irrigation strategies like the drip irrigation or the sprinkler irrigation. Further, it is leading to decline in the water table in various parts of India. And this has mainly been because of over extraction of groundwater because of the power subsidy which is available in the agriculture sector. Further, as power subsidy is provided in the agriculture sector, it promotes the cultivation of water intensive crops. And these subsidies incentivize production of water intensive crops like the rice, wheat, sugarcane, etc. And less emphasis is given on cultivation of important nutritional crops like the pulses and the oil seeds. And we note that due to the over irrigation in the sugarcane crop, it is leading to water scarcity in the Maharashtra region and is also responsible for the declining soil fertility. Now after this, let us look at what is the impact on the distribution companies of such power subsidies which are provided in the agricultural sector. So obviously this leads to higher losses for the DISCOMs because the state governments generally fix the power tariffs and the DISCOMs are not provided the flexibility of setting the power tariffs. Further, we note that the poor financial position of DISCOMs leads to less investment in the maintenance of the distribution lines. and this leads to higher aggregate transmission and commercial losses, which are known as the AT&C losses. And presently such transmission and commercial losses amount to about 23% in the DISCOMs. Further, as we note that the power subsidies lead to higher losses, this again leads to higher transmission and commercial losses, and this leads to poor financial position. So this completes a vicious cycle, and all these factors feed each other, and that is why majority of the DISCOMs do not come out of the huge debt burden. And we note that in such background, the governments have to further deteriorate their finances by providing the bailouts to such DISCOMs. Further, such kind of power subsidies which are provided in the agriculture sector has impact on the entire economy. And this is because the total debt of the DISCOMs has increased to around rupees 2.6 lakh crores presently. And this is leading to higher non-performing assets of the banks, and ultimately it is leading to decrease in the credit creation in the economy, and which is one of the factors for slowdown in the Indian economy. Now we note that DISCOMs owe around rupees 92,000 crore to the power generating companies, and this has led to poor financial position of the power producers, and ultimately it leads to less investment in power generation. Further, it is adversely impacting the industrial sector also. Now the loss suffered by the DISCOMs through the power subsidy which is given to the farmers is compensated by increasing the power tariffs for the industries, and this is a good example of cross subsidization. Now as the input cost of power is high for the industries, it leads to higher losses for the industries, and this is one of the major constraints in the success of the Make in India. So in this discussion we have seen the adverse impact of the irrational subsidy which is provided by the government to the agriculture sector, and this is because it does not reach the intended beneficiaries, which are the small and marginal farmers, and it is being utilized by the large farmers. And accordingly we have seen its adverse impact on various sectors, for example the issues related to the functioning of the DISCOMs and its impact on the economy, power generation companies and the industrial sector. So now we note that the replacement of the power subsidy with the direct benefit transfer is politically difficult exercise for the state governments. However, considering the nature of impact of power subsidy on the agriculture, power sector, financial sector as well as entire economy, this seems the best way forward for the governments. And hence, such kind of universal power subsidies or irrational power subsidies should be done away with in the agriculture sector, and these have been highlighted by the author in this article. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now this editorial on page number 6 highlight an important grouping which has been floated by the United States President Donald Trump. And in this he has tried to expand the configuration of the G7 countries of the most advanced economies to a new grouping known as the G11 nations. So this G11 group of nations is important for us from the preliminary examination point of view under the topic Events of International Importance. So let us look at this new grouping of G11 which has been floated by the US President Donald Trump. Now the President of United States of America has proposed that the G7 group of countries is an outdated grouping, and he wants this grouping to be expanded from G7 to G11. So this kind of grouping will include the G7 countries plus India, Australia, South Korea and Russia. So this is a very important aspect for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Now earlier there was a grouping known as G8 plus 5 grouping. So this included the G7 plus Russia and 5 emerging economies of the world, and that included the BRICS countries plus Mexico. So that included G8 plus India, China, Brazil, South Africa and Mexico. And in the previous DNS video dated 31st May 2020, we have already discussed the various aspects of the G7 groupings and how it originated and the current members of G7. Further in this discussion, we have discussed about an important club known as the D10 Club. And this has been started at the behest of United Kingdom. So all these aspects that we have discussed here are important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. With this, let's take up the next article now. Now in this article on page number 10, the cabinet has given its nod or approval for the agricultural marketing reforms. Now we note that recently the government of India has announced the economic stimulus package for reviving the economy because of the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And in this economic stimulus package, the Union Finance Minister had announced the third tranche of measures to introduce various reforms in the agricultural sector. And the most significant administrative and governance reforms included the amendments to the Essential Commodities Act to enable better price realization for the farmers. The second announcement was related to the agricultural marketing reforms to provide marketing choices to the farmers. And third announcement was related to providing a legal framework for contract farming. Now, such reforms were already recommended by a number of committees, and these reforms were also recommended by the committee which was created on doubling the farmers' income by 2022. Now, in the Daily News Simplified of 16th May 2020, we have comprehensively covered the economic stimulus package announced by the Finance Minister for the agriculture sector. And in that DNS, we have already covered the various aspects of the Essential Commodities Act, the agricultural marketing reforms, and the legal framework for contract farming. Now, this news article reads that the Union Cabinet has given its approval for the economic stimulus package for the agriculture sector. And the decisions that have been taken are first related to the promulgation of Farming Produce Trade and Commerce Ordinance to promote barrier-free trade in agricultural produce. Second is the promotion of farmers, empowerment and protection, agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Ordinance 2020 to promote the contract farming. And third is the approval of amendments proposed to the Essential Commodities Act. Now again in the DNS of 28th May 2020, we have discussed the various aspects related to agricultural marketing in India and issues in the agricultural marketing and various measures which have been taken by the Government of India. So we will revise from both these DNS videos, that is the DNS video of 16th May and the 28th May, various aspects of the announcements which have been made by the Government of India under the third tranche of the economic stimulus package, and also various issues related to agricultural marketing in India. Now, regarding the governance and the administrative reforms, the Government of India aims at amending the Essential Commodities Act in order to enable better price realization for the farmers. Now, what is this Essential Commodities Act and why was it enacted in the first place? So, this Essential Commodities Act was enacted in the year 1955, and this was enacted in order to make available certain commodities to the consumers at fair prices. And it is used by the Government of India to regulate the production, supply and distribution of commodities which are declared as essential under this Act. Now, the list of items which are included under this Act include the drugs, fertilizers, pulses, edible oils, petroleum and petroleum products. And the central government can add or remove a commodity from the schedule in consultation with the state governments. And one of the examples in the COVID-19 crisis is that in March 2020, the Union government declared masks and hand sanitizers as essential commodities under the Essential Commodities Act 1955. And this was done in order to ensure that they are available to the people at right price and in the right quality. So now if the center finds that a certain commodity is in short supply and its price is increasing, it can notify the stock holding limits on it for a specified period. And anybody trading and dealing in such a commodity is prevented from stockpiling it beyond a certain quantity. So what it does is that it improves the supplies and brings down the prices. So basically this act aims at improving the supplies of important commodities or products and also aims at checking the price variability in these products. However, one of the important criticisms of the Essential Commodities Act is that it has been hindering the agricultural marketing in India, and hence it is leading to failure in better price realization for the farmers. So now what are the important issues surrounding the Essential Commodities Act? So first is that the Essential Commodities Act fails to realize that stocking is essential for agriculture. Now the fear of bringing agricultural commodities under this act has prevented traders and processors from undertaking bulk procurement of agricultural commodities even during the bumper harvest season. And hence the increase in the agricultural production has not translated into higher income levels. And as most of the crops are seasonal in nature, so ensuring round-the-clock supply requires adequate buildup of stocks during the season. And that is why stocking is an essential part of agricultural marketing. However, as the traders fear that any particular product can be declared under the Essential Commodities Act, and hence they refrain from stocking of such products. And as such, this kind of fear hinders the agricultural marketing of important agri products. Now, as the traders fear stocking any kind of product, it also leads to poor investment in the storage infrastructure. And this is because frequently stock limits are announced, and as such, the traders have not invested in better storage infrastructure. Now, this also leads to adverse impact on the food processing industry. And we note that the food processing industries need to maintain large stocks in order to run their operations smoothly. And the stock limits which are imposed by this act curtails their operations. So in such a situation, the large-scale private investments are unlikely to flow into the food processing and the cold storage facilities sector. So all these impacts are interconnected in nature. Again, there is impact on agricultural exports. So whenever the government declares an agricultural commodity as essential, it imposes a number of restrictions on it, including the ban of export of such commodities. And this prevents the Indian farmers to get the best prices on their agricultural produce from the international markets. Again, this act has been touted as an outdated act. And it is said that this act is not in tune with the present times, and the act was enacted back in 1955 when we used to frequently face shortage of agricultural commodities. And because of the shortage of agricultural commodities, there was a need of government intervention to clamp down on black marketing and hoarding. However, now the situation has completely changed, and now we know that we have surplus production of agricultural products. And accordingly, we should give necessary freedom to the traders, aggregators and food processing industries to undertake bulk procurement of agricultural commodities. So now what is the new announcement? So the government will amend the Essential Commodities Act, and the agricultural foodstuffs, which will include the cereals, edible oils, oil seeds, pulses, onions, etc., shall be deregulated. That is, they will be made free from the controls which are imposed under the Essential Commodities Act. And the stock limits which are imposed will be imposed under very exceptional circumstances. And these exceptional circumstances will include the national calamities, famine, or with surge in prices of certain commodities. Further, no such stock limit shall apply to the processors or value chain participants. So these are the new announcements that have been made by the Government of India regarding the Essential Commodities Act, and important amendments will be made to this act to make the agricultural marketing more easy, and which will help in improving the agricultural processing and all the allied activities. Now, the second major administrative or governance reform related to the agriculture is related to agriculture marketing reforms. And these reforms aim at providing marketing choices to the farmers. So now, what is the background of agricultural marketing? Now, it should be noted that agriculture is a subject which is placed under the state list. And accordingly, the state governments have enacted their respective APMC acts. And these acts aim to regulate the marketing of agricultural commodities. However, the APMCs are considered to be highly restrictive and prohibitive, and hence they go against the interest of the farmers. Now, for example, the farmers are required to compulsorily sell their produce only to the registered traders in the APMCs, and they cannot sell their produce directly to the end consumers, processors, or exporters. Similarly, some of the states have restricted the farmers from selling their produce outside their APMC zones. However, such kind of restrictions are not applicable to the sale of industrial goods. So this shows that the agricultural commodities are not treated at parity with the industrial goods. So considering the fact that there are around 22,000 such APMCs, the APMC Act has led to fragmented marketing infrastructure. So accordingly, in order to bring about agricultural marketing reforms, the central government has come out with the Model Agricultural Produce and Livestock Marketing Act 2017. And in this regard, the central government has been persuading the state governments to adopt the features of this model legislation. So now, what is the new announcement regarding these APMCs? Now, the interstate trade and commerce is placed under the concurrent list. So accordingly, the center can formulate a law to promote, regulate and restrict the interstate trading of various goods. Now, as we note that the APMC acts are highly restrictive and they prohibit the farmers from selling their produce to whomsoever they want to. Now, as the APMC acts are restrictive in nature, there is a need to provide adequate freedom to the farmers to sell their produce anywhere within India and where they are likely to get a higher price. So there is a need to dismantle the fragmented agricultural marketing infrastructure and move towards an integrated domestic market for agricultural goods. So in this regard, the government had declared that it would come up with a new central law, and such a law would incorporate adequate choices to the farmers to sell their produce at attractive prices anywhere in India. Further, it aims at removing the barriers for interstate trade, and it also aims at a framework for e-trading of agricultural produces. So the government of India aims at removing the barriers for agricultural products or the marketing of agricultural products which have been created because of the APMC Acts. So in this line, the government of India will come up with a model central legislation which will provide adequate choices to the farmers to sell the produce at attractive prices. It will also lead to barrier-free interstate trade and also a framework for e-trading of agricultural produce. So this will bring the agricultural products at parity with the industrial goods. And after this, let us look at an important announcement related to contract farming. Now, the third major administrative reforms announcement has been related to contract farming in India. So now, what is contract farming and what is the current legal framework for such contract farming? So under the contract farming, the agricultural production can be carried out based on a pre-harvest agreement between the buyers and the producers. And in this case, the producers can sell the agricultural produce at a specific price in the future to the buyer as per the agreement. So there is an agreement between the farmers and the buyers. And these buyers are generally the fruit processing units or the exporters. Now such an agreement benefits both the producers as well as the buyers. And in this background, the producers can get the support from the buyer for improving the production. And such a support can be in terms of the input, for example, the technology, pre-harvest and post-harvest infrastructure. And the producer can also reduce the risk of fluctuating market price and demand. Now, on the other hand, the buyer can reduce the risk of non-availability of quality agricultural products. So this contract farming basically aims at benefiting both the farmers as well as the food processors or the exporters. Now currently the contract farming requires registration with the Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee in few states. And accordingly, contractual agreements are recorded with the APMCs and which can also resolve disputes arising out of these contracts. Now marketing fees and levies are paid to the APMCs to undertake the contract farming. So in this regard, the central government has formulated a Model Agriculture Produce and Livestock Contract Farming and Services Act 2018, and it provides for contract farming. Now in this regard, the central government has been asking the states to use this as a reference while enacting their respective laws. So what is the new announcement now related to? So the government will finalize a facilitative legal framework to enable the farmers to engage with the processors, aggregators, large retailers and exporters in a fair and transparent manner. Further, the new announcement aims at risk mitigation for the farmers and assured returns and quality standardization to form an integral part of this framework. So this new announcement has basically been related to facilitating the legal framework for contract farming. And as we note that the central government has already formulated a model law which it has been persuading the state governments to use or implement. So in this article, let us try and understand what are the issues that are affecting the agricultural marketing in India and what is the role played by the agricultural marketing in India in the first place. Also after that, we will look at the evolution of agricultural marketing in India. And after that, we will look at the major problems in the agricultural marketing sector in India, and then what are the initiatives that have been taken by the government of India for improving or working upon these problems in the agricultural marketing sector. And if you go through the question paper of General Studies paper 3 of the mains examination of 2014, you will find that a question has already been asked related to the issues that affect the agricultural marketing due to the agricultural produce market committees that are set up under the various state government acts. And that is why this topic of agricultural marketing becomes very important for us from the mains examination point of view. So let us look at all the issues that affect the agricultural marketing sector in India. Now we already know that agriculture is one of the largest enterprise in our country and it employs almost half of India's workforce. And in this regard, the government of India aims at doubling the farmers' income by the end of 2022. So in this background, it is said that poor marketing infrastructure in India is one of the biggest hurdles before the farmers for realizing the optimum prices on their agricultural produces. Further, we note that the agricultural production has been increasing continuously in the past few years. However, the increased agricultural production has neither benefited the farmers nor the end consumers. So on the one hand, the farmers continue to get lower prices, and on the other hand, the consumers continue to pay more money for their consumption. And this has been attributed to fragmented agricultural market, lack of integrated domestic market, and restrictions which are imposed on the storage, movement, and the sale of agricultural commodities. So in this background, let us look at the role which is played by the agricultural marketing for the farmers. Now, agricultural marketing in India has a much broader connotation, and it includes all the activities in the procurement of farm inputs by the farmers, as well as the movement of agricultural produce from farmland to the end consumers. Now, this covers broad range of activities which can include the storage, physical handling, transportation, primary processing, grading, packaging, and sale of agri commodities, etc. And that is why agricultural marketing involves all the aspects related to the agriculture. So in this background, an efficient agricultural marketing system is extremely critical for the growth of agriculture sector in our country. So the main role which is played by the agriculture marketing is that it enables the farmers to buy the agricultural inputs such as fertilizers, seeds, etc. at affordable prices. And this becomes important since the agriculture input costs have been increasing over a period of time. Further, it provides signals to the farmers with respect to the planning of sowing of the crops. And by making the use of market signals, the farmers would be able to grow those crops which are in high demand and get remunerative prices for the same. And a well-connected and an efficient market would also be able to address the issue of food inflation, since it would be able to match the supply with the demand for the food products. Thirdly, an integrated domestic marketing system would considerably reduce the price variations in the agricultural commodities across India. And this would enable the farmers to sell their produce anywhere in India, and they will be able to get the best prices for their agricultural produce. Further, according to a high-level expert committee which was constituted by the Ministry of Agriculture, it has estimated that 25 to 30% of the fruits and vegetables and up to 8 to 10% of the food grains are wasted annually due to lack of post-harvest technology and non-existence of integrated transport, storage, and marketing facilities. And in this background, an efficient marketing infrastructure would enable the farmers to reduce their post-harvest losses. So an efficient marketing infrastructure is important for reducing the post-harvest losses and also improving the incomes of the farmers. Further, in India, there is a lot of scope for India to boost its export of agricultural commodities. However, India has failed to make optimum use of this opportunity, and in this regard, the agricultural marketing policies can act as an enabler for boosting the agricultural exports. So what is the role played by the agricultural marketing? First is that it will make the agricultural inputs easily available for the farmers. Second is that it will signal the farmers as to which crop needs to be grown by them so that they can earn good prices for those crops. Further, if there is an integrated domestic marketing system, it will considerably reduce the price variation in the agricultural commodities across India, and also it will reduce the post-harvest losses and improve the incomes for the farmers. Further, it can also lead to boosting of agricultural exports from India. So these are few important roles which are played by the agricultural marketing system in India. So after this, let us look at the evolution of agricultural marketing system in India and what are the associated problems with this agricultural marketing structure. Now, post-independence, the government's focus was mainly on providing the markets to the farmers and also the platform to trade their agricultural produce. However, the main aim of the government of India was to keep the prices under control. And accordingly, most of the state governments have enacted the Agricultural Produce Market Regulation Act or the APMC Acts. Now you might be knowing that agriculture is a state subject, and hence APMC Acts have been enacted by the respective state governments. Now based on these APMC Acts, the state governments set up and regulate the marketing of agricultural produce. Now apart from this, there are more than 22,000 rural markets or the Grameen Hats which are under the control of local bodies, panchayats and APMCs, etc. Further, besides this, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs declares the minimum support prices for certain agricultural commodities based on the recommendations of Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices. Now, this minimum support price is intended to act as demand signal for the farmers so that they can take up the cultivation of appropriate crops based upon the existing demand in the economy. So, for example, the Government of India declares the minimum support price for the crop of wheat. The farmers get the signal that they will at least get that minimum support price if they produce the wheat, and hence it provides them an idea as to which crop will fetch them good prices in the market. So accordingly, the minimum support price has also been designed. So this minimum support price incentivizes the farmers to invest in agriculture by assuring them of minimum returns. So that is the main role played by the minimum support price. So when we go through the existing agricultural marketing system in India, we find that there are Agricultural Produce Marketing Regulation Acts or the APMC Acts, which are enacted by the state governments. Then there are rural markets or the Grameen Hearts. And then there is the minimum support price, which is announced by the central government. So after this, let us look at what are the issues that are faced by the agricultural marketing structure in India. Now, regarding the problems that are faced by the agricultural marketing in India, it is said that when India adopted the liberalization, privatization and globalization reforms in 1991, it was expected that the agricultural marketing would also be liberalized. However, the government failed to bring out reforms in the agricultural marketing in tune with the changed market environment. And agricultural marketing continues to be plagued by problems such as fragmented supply chain, poor marketing infrastructure, higher post-production losses, and lack of accurate or timely information system. So in this regard, the first issue is regarding the regulation of the markets themselves. And as we know that under the present APMC Acts, only the state governments are permitted to set up the markets. And the Act requires that the farmers' produce be sold only at regulated markets through registered intermediaries. And further, the Essential Commodities Act allows the central as well as the state governments to produce restrictions on the storage and movement of commodities which are deemed essential by the governments. So these regulation of the markets are themselves a problem in the agricultural marketing. Now, such kind of regulations have affected the private sector investment in the agricultural marketing infrastructure. And such restrictions also create artificial barriers and unnecessarily obstruct the free flow of agricultural commodities in India. And accordingly, the focus of the government has so far been on regulating rather than facilitating the agricultural trade. And the restrictions which are imposed by the APMC Acts and the Essential Commodities Act restrict the free flow of agricultural commodities in India. Further, there is fragmentation in the agricultural marketing structure in India. And there are about 2,500 regulated APMCs and around 5,000 sub-market yards which are regulated by the respective APMC Acts in India. Now, apart from that, there are thousands of rural markets or Grameen Hearts. And due to this fragmented marketing infrastructure, the agricultural commodities pass through multiple middlemen and traders who are operating in these APMCs. And this leads to the escalation in the cost of prices and prevents the farmers from getting remunerative prices for their farm produce. Now, in an ideal situation, the farmers should be allowed to sell their produce anywhere throughout India based on the prices which they get. And this can significantly improve their bargaining position and enable them to earn more incomes on their produce. And hence, the present fragmented marketing infrastructure goes against the interest of both the farmers as well as the consumers. So there is a need to develop an integrated domestic market by removing all the existing agricultural trade related barriers. Now, besides these hurdles which are created by the APMCs, there is issue of lack of access to these APMCs themselves. Now, adequate number of markets should be set up closer to the agricultural fields so that the farmers have access to APMCs. And this leads to decrease in the transportation cost for the farmers and also cuts down the post-harvest losses. And accordingly, the National Commission for the Farmers had recommended that each APMC should serve a market area of around 80 kilometers and it should be available to the farmers within a radius of 5 kilometers. However, if we look at the existing marketing structure, we find that an average APMC in India serves an area of around 450 square kilometers. And it highlights the poor access of the farmers to these APMCs. And on account of this, the farmers are forced to sell their produce at lower prices outside the APMCs to the intermediaries. So this highlights that the APMCs are not even accessible to the farmers because of the large area that they serve. Again, there is issue of imposition of multiple fees in the APMCs. Now the APMCs charge market fee for the buyers as well as licensing fee from the traders. And apart from that, they also charge licensing fee from other agents such as the warehousing agents and loading agents, etc. And these multiple fees are estimated to be around 15% of the value of agricultural produce in some of the states. And these charges imposed have a cascading effect on the prices of the commodities, which adversely affect the end consumers. Further, the present agricultural marketing system is against the interests of the small and the marginal farmers. Now, almost 85% of the farmers in India are small and marginal farmers. And these farmers with lower marketable surplus find it difficult to aggregate their produce and sell it to the APMCs through auction. And hence, these farmers resort to sell their produce to local agents and traders at a much lower price. Further, another issue regarding the agricultural marketing infrastructure is that there is poor infrastructure of the APMCs. So even though the APMCs earn regular revenue through the imposition of mandi tax, the infrastructure in the APMCs such as the godowns, cold chain infrastructure, etc. continues to remain quite poor. And this leads to improper storage and consequently higher post-harvest losses. And most of the APMCs have not been able to set up electronic auction platforms, which are quite important for offering the remunerative prices to the farmers. And finally, there is higher post-harvest losses, and according to a recent study, the total estimated loss in India is around rupees 92,000 crore. And the higher post-harvest losses could be attributed to fragmented market, lack of access to proper storage, and poor handling and transportation of the agricultural farm produce. So these are some of the problems or issues with the present agricultural marketing structure in India. Now in this regard, let us look at what are the important initiatives that have been taken by the Government of India for handling the issue of agricultural marketing. Now, as we have seen that there are various issues which impact the agricultural marketing structure in India. So in this regard, the Government of India has recently created a Model Agriculture Produce and Livestock Marketing Act 2017. And this Model Act has been developed by the Ministry of Agriculture. And the Government of India has been pursuing the state governments to modify their respective APMC acts along the lines of this Model Agriculture Produce and Livestock Marketing Act 2017. So in this regard, let us look at what are the salient features of this Model Act which has been prepared by the Ministry of Agriculture. So first is that it provides for the freedom to the farmers to sell their produce outside the APMCs to the exporters, processors and end consumers. And we note that such kind of freedom is restricted under the existing APMC acts of the state governments. Further, it permits the private sector entities to establish new markets for the agricultural produce in any area which was earlier restricted by the respective state governments' APMC acts. Further, it also seeks to do away with the multiple levies, and instead it imposes a single levy of market fee on the sale of notified agricultural commodities in any market area. So it tends to do away with the cascading impact of multiple fees which are levied in the agricultural mandis. Further, it does away with the need for multiple licensing requirements for the traders, and also it has proposed licensing of market functionaries which would allow them to operate in multiple markets. However, most of the states have not fully complied with the provisions of the Model APLM Act, and there has been general reluctance on the behalf of the states to amend their APMC acts to the tune of this Model Act which has been prepared by the Ministry of Agriculture. Further, it is being said that the provisions of this Model Act would not lead to the creation of a national or state level common market for the agricultural commodities. And this is because this Model Act states that even when the buyers are buying the agricultural produce outside the APMC area, they are still required to pay the APMC charges. And this acts as a barrier for the creation of integrated domestic market in India. Further, the Government of India has initiated the National Agriculture Market or the ENAM. So in order to integrate the agricultural markets throughout the India, the Government of India has set up the National Agriculture Market or NAM in 2016. And it is a pan-India electronic trading portal which seeks to network the existing APMCs through a virtual platform to create a unified national market for agricultural commodities. And thus this eNAM platform promotes better marketing opportunities for farmers to sell their produce through online, competitive and transparent price discovery system and online payment facility. Now, even though the central government has started this eNAM platform, there are some challenges which are being faced in the implementation of this eNAM portal. Now, to implement the eNAM, every state government has to first amend its APMC Act to make a provision for the electronic auction as a mode of price discovery and allow a single license across the state and have the market fees levied at a single point. However, as we note that most of the states have failed to carry out these amendments, and thus the eNAM portal has not been able to provide benefits to all the farmers across India. So even though the central government has been coming up with various model initiatives, the state governments have been showing reluctance in adopting these initiatives. Similar such initiative is the initiative of contract farming. And the contract farming agreement is the agreement between the farmers and the buyers, such as an MNC, wherein the buyers provide for necessary inputs such as the seeds to the farmers, and the farmers in turn agree to sell their produce at a predetermined price. And in this regard, the Model APLM Act provides for contract farming agreement to reduce the barriers to agricultural trade and ensure remunerative prices to the farmers. Now, although the Government of India has provided for contract farming under the APLM Act, it faces multiple issues and challenges when it is implemented by the state governments. And in this regard, most of the state governments have failed to provide for contract farming in their APMC Acts. And due to this, most of the time such an agreement is more of informal agreement between the farmers and the MNCs. And due to such informal nature of the agreements between the farmers and the MNCs, the interests of the farmers are not protected. And it has been observed at times that in order to cut their transaction costs, the MNCs prefer farmers who own huge land rather than small and marginal farmers. And hence the interests of the small and marginal farmers are not taken care of because the state governments have failed to provide for contract farming in the APMC Acts. So this also highlights that the benefits of the contract farming has been reaching to only limited big farmers, and it has not been able to reach the small and the marginal farmers. Further, another initiative is related to the farmer producers organizations or the FPOs. And these FPOs are an entity formed by the primary producers, for example, the farmers, milk producers, etc. And it provides for the sharing of profits or benefits amongst the members of such farm producer organizations. Now, the small and marginal farmers do not have the large marketable surplus, and hence the formation of these FPOs by these farmers increases their bargaining powers and avoids the long chain of intermediaries to sell their produce directly to the end consumers. Now, in this background, the Union Budget of 2018 and 19 has announced a 5-year tax holiday and a small credit guarantee fund of rupees 100 crore for promotion of such farm producer organizations. And also the central government has been encouraging the states to directly support the FPOs through various schemes. Again, we note that the Government of India has launched a new umbrella scheme which is known as the PM Asha or the Pradhan Mantri Annadata Aay Sanrakshan Abhiyan. And this scheme has been launched by the Government of India to ensure the benefits of MSP reach the poor and the small and marginal farmers. So by implementation of this scheme, it is expected that this would prevent the distressed sale of the commodities by the farmers and enable the government to fulfill its stated objective of doubling the farmers' income by the end of 2022. Again, the budget of 2018 and 19 had proposed to set up the Grameen Agricultural Markets or the GRAMs. And these were aimed at enabling the farmers to sell their agricultural produce without any restrictions which they presently encounter in the form of APMC imposed restrictions. And in this regard, the Government of India has declared its intent to develop and upgrade the existing 22,000 rural hearts into Grameen agricultural markets. And these GRAMs will be linked electronically to the eNAM. And further, they will be exempted from the regulations of the APMC Acts, which will provide farmers the facility to make direct sale to the consumers and the bulk purchasers. So these are few initiatives that have been taken by the Government of India so far. So in this article, we have looked at the various aspects of the agricultural marketing structure in India, and also we have looked at the various problems which are faced by the agricultural marketing infrastructure in India. Further, we have looked at the important initiatives that have been taken by the Government of India for resolving the issues with the agricultural marketing sector in India. So in this line, we note that India needs to enhance the production and productivity of agricultural produce in a sustainable manner so as to ensure the food and nutritional security. And that is why creation of an efficient and integrated domestic agricultural market is quite vital for the benefit of the economy. And this marketing system needs to address the challenges of high post-harvest losses and storage losses. Again, it also needs to address the issues of high marketing costs, inadequate market or procurement centers, and efficient storage and distribution of produce across the country. Further, the domestic agricultural market in India needs to be integrated with the foreign markets to ensure optimum benefits for the farmers. And the agricultural production has to keep pace with the population growth, consumers' preferences, and demand in the domestic and international markets by adoption of appropriate policies of market-led production. So some of the issues that we have discussed in this article are very important for us from the General Studies paper 3 in the mains examination. So do go through this, and with this let's take up the next news article. So with this we conclude today's discussion. Now let's take up the question for the day.